Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Social Housing Roundtable. Lovely to have you all with us this morning. A massive thank you to everyone who's been able to join us. It's a bit of a special one today, so I'm really looking forward to today's session, and we're really glad to have you all here. My name's Matt Baird. I've been running this platform now for the last 4 or 5 years, really heavily over kind of the last 4. We've been running these every week. This is episode 194, so if you are new to the platform, a massive welcome to you. We do these every single Tuesday at 11 o'clock. And you're more than welcome to use the link that you've had today to attend any future sessions that you wish. The idea behind this platform is to bring together people from a wide range of communities, a wide range of viewpoints, to come together and really debate and discuss a huge range of issues, really. And not just talk into an echo chamber, not just say the same things that we hear all the time, but really kind of get into the crux of what's going on in social housing, how we can come together to fix it, and what we can do collaboratively to make change. And it's backed up by our sponsors, which this year are CMSG and Alertical, so huge thanks to those, and to people who are able to join us every single week. But it's also backed up by my recruitment company. So I've been working in recruitment for the last 14 years, and the money from that directly goes into keeping this free and open to all. So if you are looking for recruitment support, please do reach out. So on to today, now that my intro spiel is getting faster every week. I want to introduce Dragana Curovic with us today. Now, Dragana was introduced to us to the Social Housing Roundtable via Alessandro Casale, who's with us as well today, as members of Eurhonet, which is the European Housing Network. If you don't know much about them, please go and investigate. They're doing some incredible work out there. And we're trying to find a theme of maybe what's going on in Europe or what's going on elsewhere in the social housing world that we can bring to the table to have a really informed discussion about. And Dragana has been leading on a project over in SällBo, talking about combating loneliness through multi-generational living. So I wanted to bring it to the roundtable today, highlight some of the amazing work that's gone on, and get involved in a bit of a discussion around what's gone well, what maybe hasn't gone well, and what some of the learnings from it have been, and how it's progressing and how it's developing. So, Dragana, I'm going to pass over to you to introduce yourself, your background, and a bit about the SällBo project and how it kind of came to fruition in the first place.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everybody. And to you, it's morning. To me, it's midday because I'm in Sweden, so it's 1 hour difference. My name is Dragana Curovic, and I work as a project manager, social project manager at a municipality-owned company, Helsingborgshem, which is in the south of Sweden, in a little city of 150,000 citizens. And I'm also the group leader. That's why I'm coming through Eurhonet. I'm the group leader of the social integration group at Eurhonet, the European network, housing network, which contains approximately 57 members in the group, where we discuss social housing and the challenges and the good examples and what we can do, how we can change policies and things like that. So about SällBo, it's my little baby. It's a project that actually was brought up by me because of a need that we discovered, not only in our company, but also in the city. As I said, we are a municipality-owned housing company, and in Sweden, we don't have social housing per se. We have the social housing baked in the public housing, which means that the municipality-owned companies, housing companies, are those who gives apartments even for social housing. So that's why we are in the social housing sphere. And what happens? SällBo is an intergenerational companionship living, which started as an integration project, actually, because we, as a municipality-owned company, was offered by the municipality to buy a house which was previous a housing for elderly people owned by the municipality. And we bought it in order to make it to a security home, which is pretty much a senior living for people above the age of 70 at that time. Now it's 65. And it's, you have your own apartment, and then you have 1 or 2 room for having some activities, and you have at your disposal also a host that helps you arrange those activities. That was very popular, and it was in an area which was homogeneically totally clean, or we can see unanimous. We had the only elderly people with native background from Sweden. So that was very popular. People were standing in queue for having a place in that. But when we bought the house, we have to renovate it, and we started the renovation process. When it was finished, it was we were there to start to get in people. But at that time, what happened in the world? Well, the refugee crisis in Syria happened, which meant that the municipality needed the house because it was still empty. And they said, don't do anything. Let us see first expectations. At that time, our municipality has a contract with the government to take in unaccompanied young refugees who are minors without parents. And by that time, it used to be 30 persons a year. In October 2015, when this is the actual time when we were supposed to start a refurbishment, there were 459 who were attending to enter in the AGB house, the supporting houses. But in every way, this house became the AGB home, a supporting home for young refugees, unaccompanied, in 3.5 years, and it was the biggest one. So after this time, the need for those for this group was over, they decided to keep, from the municipality side, to keep the bottom floor. And they said, you can make over the other 3 floors for the elderly group, as you have planned. But we said no, because during those 3 years, what happened was that we didn't have any incidents in the house. But you can imagine a homogenic neighborhood with only elderly people suddenly got 100 of people, youngsters between the age of 13 and 17, and not only usual youngsters, but youngsters who are speaking another language, who are looking differently, and about whom the media has written a lot negativity about this target group, that there are incidents in those supporting homes. That didn't happen in our supporting home. But what happened was that those youngsters didn't have a permanent permit. And they were very troubled if they will stay or not in Sweden, because a lot of them was traveling around Europe and the Middle East in months and sometimes in years, and Sweden was their last resort. So they didn't know if they will stay, and if they don't stay, what will happen with them. So they were awake at night and they smoked. When they smoked, the alarm went off, and with the alarm, everything came, the firefighters, the ambulances, the police. And you can imagine in this neighborhood where there were all elderly people who were not used and who have read in the media about this target group, what they thought about that, because there was an evacuation of the house, of course, every second night, pretty much. So we said no to the municipality, but the municipality said, we understand your problem, but you are owned by us, we are your owner, and we need apartments, dwellings for those 2 target groups. So solve it. And that was, SällBo is a solution for a need from society, but also from us. Because when we started to work with that, we realized that the elderly people were very lonely, because although they have families nearby and they visited their families, but even when they have visited their families, they became even more lonely, because then they knew what they have missed all the other days when they were not with their families. And the other thing was that they felt socially excluded from society because they felt that there was so much bombing with information. They didn't know what is true, what is not, what is fake, what it's not. So they choose to be in a bubble with with people of their own age, or if they're not so lucky to have companionship, to be alone. So that was for the elderly, and for the young refugees, we knew that they were alone because they were without parents. They were also socially isolated in their own group, and they had troubles with integration. Where we knew that the basic of all integration is to know the history, to know why things are like they are in society, in order to compare it with your own culture, with your own society, and then start the integration process, which we thought would be very nice because the elderly has the history. They know why things are like they are. They can help, and they can help also with the contact network. They can help also with the language. So we thought it would be a perfect for the youngsters. At the same time, the youngsters are very aware of what fake news are and what are not. They are very digital. They have the possibility to let the elderly enter their society in general. So we thought it was a good solution, but there was still a fear and unsafeness between those elderly and the youngsters. At the same time, we knew that we needed to do something in order to make those two groups get together, because of the unsafety that has increased in the neighborhood where this house was. So we decided to give it a shot, but we knew that we have to put in a bridge between those two groups in order to make them work together and to socialize. And the bridge was actually youngsters at the same age, between 18 and 25, because we decided that the young refugees has to be between the age of 18 and 25 when they are supposed to enter a normal apartment and not be in the supporting home, because then they can write or sign the contract. So we said that the same age of youngsters, but well established, who not necessarily has to be native Swedish, but who are established in society, can speak their language, have friends, have families, and things like that, and know how the society functions. At our big surprise, we discovered that those youngsters who are not supposed to be alone because they were just the bridge, ended to be the most lonely group, which was the biggest surprise of all, because what's the reason? You can ask, you have friends, you have families, you are born or raised in Sweden, you have all the possibilities. But there, the reason was that the social media, that the society they are living in, have made that they have to pretend to be something else among their peers and in society in general. But when they are home, they feel very lonely because they know that they are not what they are showing out to be. And that makes them very lonely and feel very badly, even mentally. So that was the start of SällBo. And SällBo started in November 2019 as a 2 years integration project, because it was very controversial to start choosing people who will get the possibility to live in the house. At the same time, in Sweden, we have the point method of giving apartments, which means you are in queue, and for every day you are in queue, you get 1 point. And of course, when there are open apartments for rent, then those who has most points are those who are offered the apartments. In this case, as we have to choose, we didn't allow points. We said we will go against the policy of points, we will play a little bit God by choosing the people who are most in most need for this kind of housing. And that was very unorthodox, that was very controversial, so it was a risky thing to do. But we did it. And as they allowed us to do it in 2 years as a project, they said, we will see if it functions, we'll see what happens. If it doesn't function, we go to the original idea of safety homing. Yeah? But when they gave us the opportunity, you know how it is. When you give a little finger to a child, it takes the whole hand. That's why what we did. As it was an integration project, we said, why not notch it up to make it a real integration? Which means that by choosing, we also choose every person that enters the house has to be so different as possible from all the other persons, as the platform of the appliance gives us the possibility. Which means that we today has totally different persons on different levels, different values, different interests, different education, different socioeconomic situation, and sexual preference, everything, you know, all the things that can be problems in society in integrational context. And I can say that SällBo is not longer a project. It has become part of our ordinary business, but we still choose the method of choosing and applying. It's the same as in the project. And we have a very low amount of people leaving SällBo. So today we have actually youngsters who were maybe 25 when they entered the house. Now they are 30, 31, because it's almost 6 years ago. They have children. And the problem is really that we have more people want to stay, and a lot of people wanted to come in, but we don't have the opportunity to make bigger apartments, and we have not the opportunity to take in all who wants to come in. So that's a short presentation. And yes, one very important, as this is companionship living, and this is to counteract loneliness and unsafeness, and to bring up the social integration possibilities. We have decided that every person who signs the contract has to sign also that they will socialize at least 2 hours with their neighbors. It doesn't mean activities, but they have to socialize. And at their disposal, they have 580 square meters of togetherness area, where there is actually direct democracy, which means that all the apartments, there are 51 apartments in the house, has one vote, which means that it's always a majority and a minority, and they decide by one vote. It doesn't matter how many people lives in the apartment, what shall be done with the togetherness area, how they have to conduct there, how many guests, which guests can go into the togetherness area, and things like that. Yes, I'll stop there.
No, thank you, Dragana. And I could see from smiles and nods and things, I think people were really interested in how this came about. And I mean, the 2 of the points that I raised, and I mean, if anybody does have questions, thoughts they'd like to share, please either kind of use the raise hand feature. I'd love to bring you in and hear your thoughts, or alternatively just put your ideas in the chat and I'll absolutely read them out. I think 2 of the things that kind of stand out for me, and I'm going to come back to the loneliness bit in a minute, because I think what's interesting, and I appreciate that most of the audience here are British who are here today, or at least kind of live in the UK, and we're having a lot of challenges around loneliness in young people and loneliness in the elderly, and maybe how that's affecting the political and political doctrine and things like that, and how people are being affected and things like that. So I think that's really interesting. But the other part I wanted to come back to is, you mentioned at the beginning that there was quite a lot of pushback on this even taking place, on people saying, well, either that sounds like it isn't going to work, or we don't really want to, we'll just do it our way. And you're kind of forced to do it. And yet now that it's been forced, it's suddenly been this big success. Do you think that, has that had any effect on future plans, on what's gone on since 2019, the way maybe other projects have run, in terms of someone kind of really going, look, you're going to have to do it and just go? Has it had an effect on how things are run more broadly in Sweden, and particularly in Helsingborg, where yourself is? Case Management Solution Group, or CMSG, are the home of React, the UK's #1 case management system for ASB and community safety. We are delighted to have them as one of our key sponsors for Social Housing Roundtable 2025 into 2026. And with the ASB app now fully integrated to the platform, it allows residents to record, monitor and report issues directly to their case office in live time. What's not to love? CMSG are bringing simplicity back to case management, and I cannot recommend them enough and thank them for all of their support through this period and through the rest of the year. Thank you, CMSG, and do please go check them out on social media and on LinkedIn. Thank you.
Absolutely, it has started the discussion. It has started the incitement for people to start working on the issue. And SällBo is still very popular, both for the media and the academia and the branch. Everybody is calling, but it's still very controversial to do all those changes that we had to do in both the everyday management, but also in taking in and in being so bold. But in the end of the day, it always ends on, if you pick up the right people, how it will be working, how they will work together, because now they're working together. We don't have to pull the hand on them. They are doing it by themselves. We have just a host who is there in order to don't make conflicts emerge, to stop them where they are on their way, because they are, of course, as you have so many differences. And that's still very controversial, but people are trying, they are choosing their own methods. They are inspired by SällBo, although they're still not, SällBo is still unique in general. But there is a big discussion about loneliness. There is a lot of inspiration, and not only in Sweden, but also in the world. People are getting back to us. So yes, I will say that it has opened it, and for our own part, I can say that we will not make new SällBos, because SällBo was a response to a certain situation at that time. SällBo is for us a test project where we learn. It's a living lab. We learn and we try to use everything we learn by SällBo in our other concepts and what we work with. So it's actually giving us the opportunity also to see what happens, because SällBo, it's not today the same as it was when we started. So it gave us also the opportunity to start working agile, the agility to, because before you have one department, one unit who is working with that, the other unit is working. Now we have to work together in order to fulfill the needs that are coming all the time. And we have SällBo as a learning experience.
That's fantastic. I know one of the big challenges we have in the UK is silo working, people not working in partnership interdimensionally, particularly within our own department. So that's amazing to hear. Just another kind of positive that's come out of it. I'm going to go to some of the points in the chat, and then I've got further points anyway I'd love to raise further as we go through. But this year has said, morning from sunny Suffolk. A rural county where isolation and loneliness are a problem, especially in light of cuts in public transport, mental health and social care. The issues have been exacerbated by an influx of people into a formerly inward-looking county without the appropriate levels of support and funding. We are a hotbed for some of the more recent issues in the media, and a certain right-wing group are gaining a lot of support on financially disadvantaged social housing estates like mine. Louise has backed that up, saying it's a fabulous concept for encouraging friendships and supporting those groups who really need it. And Brian has said, and it ties back into Alicia's point, do you feel having the face-to-face conversations between different groups, and it isn't just age, but it's obviously been race and refugees and everything else you mentioned there, between different groups has really helped bring people together for great understanding about each other and each other's communities? Have you seen that improve in terms of how people maybe are reacting to others in broader society outside of SällBo and within?
Yeah, we have said rings on the water, because initially the elderly people in the neighborhood first were very negative to the housing concept, and they said, no, we don't want that. But afterwards, when elderly people, maybe not, because we had actually just 2 persons from the neighborhood among the elderly who chose to come into the house, although we first gave them the opportunity to choose it because they were in queue for the safety housing. And initially they didn't want, they were very afraid. Now by mouth to mouth, spreading, it has become the target group of young refugees. It's not so controversial. They have understood that they are good guys. They have no problems. They are actually having contact to each other outside the house with the people living around. And that has also spread into society in general, in the whole city, because, SällBo has become a big success, which is spread all over the city. So people are not any longer afraid of this specific target group. So yes, and we have also a lot of people from the city wanting us to make much more SällBo or something like that. So I think that they have understand. And if you can go to the house, we can see that initially, when I said that we chose people with different values, it was also very important to have people who were not so glad over having people maybe from other background, and in that case, and maybe not so happy about immigration. But the only requirement was that they didn't have to be totally racist, in the hardest form of the word. So we let them also come, and we have seen the changement. They are saying by themselves they would never choose in a normal circumstance to live with somebody from another country or from this target group, but now they see the benefits. The differences has made them wiser. So yes, I think that there is a lot of positive.
That's fantastic. I can see a point from both Cheryl and Sarah in the chat, which I'm going to come back to in a moment, because Alicia's raised her hand, and we'd love to hear from people too. So Alicia, do please come in.
Hi, just really to follow up on the points I was making. 30 years ago, I've had 30 years of community development work, mostly in rural communities. And 30 years ago, we had an issue where the elderly people in a certain village were getting really, really panicky about the groups of youths who were actually meeting around the village pump. And it was fear and them not understanding each other to a certain amount. And I explained to them, well, I've seen groups of elderly people around the pump waiting to get the bus. It's what's the difference, in the nicest possible way. In the end, I actually went to the village pump, met with the young people, and with funding from all sorts of people, including Lord Sainsbury, who set up the late Lord Sainsbury, who set up Sainsbury's, the supermarket. I got funding for a project which is already, is continuing. But the difference that we have, 30 years ago when I was working, there was funding available. My biggest issue, and I think this is where we need desperately. I'm really trying to get more of this information from what other countries are doing. I talk quite a lot to people in Australia, and you know what they're doing along social housing and public housing. I think we need more of an understanding about the sort of things that you are doing in other countries for us to appreciate how it can work. But we also do need the funding as well, because my biggest thing at the moment, I am battling against a lot of right-wing rhetoric, and it's no good me going out there into the communities now because I don't have the funding for me to actually begin to do something community. So as I say, we desperately need more people like you from other countries. And the point you just made, you know, while you wouldn't accept people who are very overtly racist, it is about accepting that we can have different opinions, we can have different ways of working, different ways of living, but it doesn't mean that we can't get together to make something bigger and better. So as I say, I wish we were hearing more of what you know, what people are doing in Europe and further afield.
Yeah. I understand totally your problem. It's not unique, and I have to be honest. Probably we would have the same thing, because you know financing is always the thing that comes in between. In this case, we had already decided a certain financial of this safety homing for elderly people. So it was into the company. And although this was a little bit more expensive, it wasn't so much. It's about 20,000 euros that we had to put it, but we had to think again and around, because you know, usually in Sweden when you do the renovation of things, you throw out everything and you put in new things, as new kitchens, new bathrooms, new pavements, you know, everything has to be new. In this case, in order to get also those 580 square meters of togetherness area, which were very crucial in order to make people socialize, we had to draw in something and to be very creative. So what we did was to try, and that was also a policy crossing thing, was to keep everything that was possible to keep, to repair what was possible to repair, and to change or to just those things that were necessary, which made us have a little more money for the togetherness area. And there we couldn't buy everything new as it's usual, which I'm very thankful, because now we have an atmosphere of home. You know, you have something that we both on the flea market, something that it's new, something that people has donated to the house. So it's a very homey atmosphere, although it's a building that was an institution. As the second part of what you're talking about, that was also something that I have worked in my role. I have worked a lot in trying to make people, decision-making people, understand how important it is to bring those two groups. So that was a little bit of luck that they needed from the municipality side, apartments. Then we got this possibility. So it is a little bit of luck, a little bit of planning before, and a little bit of using the situation. But I totally feel with you, because I know how hard it is.
I think it's one of those where you can, whilst we do comment on it being luck and things, you've still got to have someone asking the question. And I think that's a key part of it. And I will, I'm going to be doing some more work with Eurhonet, and I can't wait to be involved. But to those who do want to find out about more, then we've got Alessandro with us, and I want him to talk a little bit in it shortly. I'm going to bring in Andrea first, but in a little bit around more than 39 members across Europe, supporting more than 2 million tenants and 18,000 colleagues, and really here is a best practice. And yet I didn't come across them until about 12 months ago, when I heard about their conference in Barcelona, I think was last year, and then this year I believe was Ireland. and finding out more about them that way, and discovering more about this amazing network. But for now, I'm going to bring in Andrea, because we've got, I know, points from Cheryl and Sarah. Sarah is due back shortly, so I want to make sure Sarah's back while we raise her point. So Andrea, good to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me. I think just a few observation points for me. And as you said, these kind of trials are not unique. They have happened in different countries around Europe and Australia and other bits of the world. I think it's only the question, and of course, funding is always important. We need to allocate funding for these kind of services to enable the workers, the support workers, to do what they need to do to support the community. However, I think there is a crucial mind shift that needs to happen in terms of designing the housing association developments that are happening, the social housing in general. When we do have new developments, how do we tackle them to enable these kind of collaboration opportunities? When we bring our tenants in, what partnerships are we building to ensure those tenants, who we see are single applicants, but you only have available, I don't know, stocks of 2 bedrooms, how can that be maximized when we know individuals would not be eligible for the two bedrooms, but do need the house? And then thinking a little bit wider of what Germany has done, for example, in other countries around Europe, where you pair up residential homes with students from universities. We all work around massive universities with huge student fees just to be in the halls, where actually that's a crucial partnership that can be built. The university has plenty of money potentially to pay the housing association for hosting the students in themselves, or even through the student loans. But where are those partnerships at the moment? How do we generate them more? One, to release the stock that's currently available, but two, in future development, because we're all building more and we all have social housing on our minds. Where's this partnership happening? There's a brilliant project in Brighton where it's a co-op housing model, where actually from the start they designed the whole thing to incorporate all the generations. There's the rule that if you are a tenant there, you have to have a family style meal with everyone at least once a month. Someone takes charge in cooking and organizing everything. They've got social growing and all sorts of weird and wonderful social programming happening. But it's only because, to start with, it's Brighton. Two, it's a co-op. So again, how do we take that and lift it into our own strategy and business planning? Because ultimately down the line, it's all about the money. So how do we maximize our budgets with partnerships and other approaches?
If I can reply, I agree mostly with what you said, but not totally about the money, because you can have money. As you say, I have been and I have followed a lot of very, very good projects that have succeeded. But in the end, as you have the finance, it's the beginning. You do need the finance. But in the end, it's all about the people. If you have the right people for the right circumstances, which is a response to the need of the local society, then you have the right people to do it, it will always be good. And when I say the right people to do it, it's not only the people who are starting the projects or who are starting the initiatives or who are doing the initiatives. It's always about the people you choose to have into the concept. Because the cooperatives that you are talking about, we had a lot here in Sweden. And as I know, there are just 2 or 3 that are succeeding, because the people in the cooperative who are living there are the ones who are also engaged. So it's very important to think about not only the finance, not only to have a structure that you can use on different levels. It's important to have a vision. That's what we want to accomplish, and then to adjust it to the need and to the possibilities that you have locally. So that's maybe the reason why some of the initiatives or projects are successful and the other are not. Because I've seen a lot that are doing that just because they have heard this is a good thing and we need that too, and we can do it here. But it was actually not the real need. It was more complicated than that. If you understand what I mean. Well, my English is not native, so I hope that I could explain it.
No, it's absolutely brilliant, and you're rightly so. Absolutely, you need to have the right people, and you need to teach the right attitudes towards it. But I also believe that these things need to be slowly but surely led there, because sometimes you need to change the behaviors happening for sure. And I think the second option in here is the development themselves. We see so many housing estates being built with no community in mind. I live on an estate now. There's a whole green space and tiny park for people to gather. No one's at it anyway. And there's signs everywhere to say, don't go on the grass, don't do this, don't do that. Well, where's the community? Where's the cohesion that we want to bring people together? Where's the holes where people need to gather?
Exactly. We have to remember that we are building homes. We have homes where people are living in, not houses, and that's the difference. When you start thinking that way, it's much easier, because people are not numbers or birth numbers or just names. They start to become living creatures.
Absolutely. I mean, Cheryl's put in the chat there that she lives with her 87-year-old father by choice, with my 22-year-old daughter, and it helps everyone's mental health. And my father's a good role model for my daughter. The thought of him being lonely upsets me too much. Living with him means I can assist him in his old age and we have great conversations. Mind you, he's fit and active, cycling 87 miles on his recent birthday, which is huge kudos to him, because I'm not going to be doing anything like that anytime soon. But there was also a point from Sarah that was interesting. So Sarah mentioned, I think it's important for housing providers to really define what their service offer is around mental health services. There's an acceptance that local provision is so stretched that it's starting to feel more like a moral duty to provide more of this as a housing provider. The argument is we aren't a stat provider, but if we tackle this head on, we're getting into a proactive space rather than reactive about tenancy sustainment. And Alicia said it's all about funding. I'm in favour of housing associations expanding their roles because of their experience in the community, but it must come with funding. And I guess a lot of this comes back to another point you mentioned actually in that conversation briefly there with Andrea, which is you can kind of say, well, this needs to happen, and this, look at the benefits of it, but you need somebody there going, we're just going to do it. Because as you say, you had a lot of pushback from the community and from other members in the business. It would have been very easy for people just to go, all right, well, we're not going to do it then. So, I mean, I don't know if it was yourself or the team, but how did you, I guess, where did that kind of resilience and bravery, which I think sometimes is missing from the British, certainly the British kind of housing association, sometimes leadership, to actually go, no, we're going to do this because it's best for the community and we're just going to do it. And we know there'll be pushback, but we're going to go ahead anyway. We miss some of that over here sometimes, not always, but sometimes. Did that come from yourself? Is it a Swedish way of working? Is it a community-led? How did that come about, Dragana? Because I think that'd be really interesting for the audience to hear. Alert Call return as one of the keynote sponsors for the Social Housing Roundtable in 2025 into 2026, and we're delighted to have them back. Alert Call help as many people as possible feel safe, connected and informed by combining ingenious technology and award-winning human contact. As you can see from this touchscreen I've got with me, Alert Call's digital engagement solution helps social landlords proactively know their customers and properties by putting a portable touchscreen in every home, offering a daily property check through the optional OK Each Day service, plus repairs reporting, tenant surveys and much more. They also provide Beyond Warden Call, an easier, simpler and lower cost wireless warden call solution with video door entry, dispersed telecare and smoke alarms. Alert Call work with over 60 housing providers across the UK to enhance two-way engagement between customers and their landlords. In 2022, Alert Call won the Queen's Award for Enterprise and Innovation, and in 2023, Alert Call won Housing Supplier of the Year. We're delighted to have them back with us throughout the course of this year, and please do go check them out on social media and LinkedIn to find out more. Thank you very much, Alert Call, for sponsoring us again.
Well, we can start with myself. I'm an immigrant too. I came to Sweden 42 years ago, and I didn't have any family except my husband, which was very new. So, no friends, no family. And I ended up in a part of the city where there were mostly elderly people, Swedish elderly people. And everybody said that you are crazy. How can you move in. They said it to my husband because he had, and he's originally also an immigrant, but he came to Sweden when he was 1 year old. And they said, youngsters in this neighborhood and, you know, with the other background in Swedish, you're totally crazy. It showed up that that was the best thing that I did in my life, because suddenly my children got a lot of grandfathers and grandmothers who were able to give them the initiation to something that I couldn't give because I was new in Sweden. So they entered the Swedish society as their own, and it was no problem. While I know that people in the same situation as I was initially and didn't live there, they had problems with their children of choosing or being or understanding the surroundings. So that was my power initially, and that's why I wanted to do that, because I knew that it functions. As for the bravery of the leadership, I think it's not usually in whole Sweden. We are working a lot, but that kind of boldness that my management had, and the board, which is politically also in the city, that they dare to do it. It's not usual, but they did it, and I think it's connected with the trust that they have in their people who are working in the company. So that was actually, in my opinion, the reason why it succeeded also, because, you know, they also, when they decided to let us do the project, they let us also, me and my project group, have open hands to deal with it in the best way. And that was something that gave us much more confidence. So you know, the boldness arrives with the confidence, and I think that's the reason why it went in this way. But initially, it was maybe my totally. I was totally convinced that it will work, and that's the because I had the experience.
But that's fantastic, and that's where there has been a lot of calls, particularly over the last few years within British RPs, that talk about the need for lived experience, the need for people who've been in the system and who've come through and who kind of can, because you get convictions such as like yours to make it run, and you need someone at the top going, we're going to do this, we're going to make it work, let's have a bit of faith and let's really push on, because otherwise you do have that culture sometimes of, oh, you know, those negative voices come through and suddenly nothing ever gets done. You can see from the chat, so Lucy has said, not only must these kind of projects come with funding, has to come with experience and qualifications too. Working in social housing for many years, it feels like our roles are stretched to the limit already, and many frontline colleagues are already expected to be social workers, GPs, paramedics, mental health experts, which we have to be so careful about what we say and how we say it, because tenants latch onto us because they know we answer their calls and reply to their emails quicker than they can get appointments within their GP surgery. And I'm going to come back to that point in a minute, because it ties into Kate, who said that sometimes it's about thinking about that wider community. Kate ran a foyer some years ago. We had a sheltered scheme within the same housing association. What started out as a communal cooking through the Fair Share scheme evolved into making jam as part of hampers for the older population, which then evolved into an adopted grandparent scheme where my youngsters, many of whom had a difficult upbringing, would go and mow grass or paint fences and get some guidance from the older population. It made the community more cohesive rather than polarised, which for us, it didn't need any more money, just awareness of what was in the local area. And I think that ties into what Lucy's mentioned and some of the points she made earlier, which is that housing has become incredibly stretched, and it's become so, you know, particularly in the UK, that the level of requirements for staff has become really, really broad. But if you have a community that is there genuinely helping each other through many walks of life, as you say, you have the older generation, younger generation. You talked about how the older generation were helping the younger generation sometimes with life skills, younger generation were helping with tech and other parts that came through, refugees providing a different perspective. Then actually that need to suddenly be a master of all for your tenants goes away, because the community starts to support itself. And by the sound of it, that's been one of the big successes of this project more broadly, and one that by the sound of it has continued on, even though SällBo is different now, that legacy has continued through.
Yeah, I think that actually, as you said, it was also a controversial question initially. How much should we, as a housing company, be involved in the social part of our tenants in that kind of way? But you know, eventually, as we said before, we are not giving them just a roof on their heads. We are giving them homes. And we are those who are nearest, because in our city, every fourth person in the city is living with us, which means that we are not a department, we are not the government, we are somebody who are there for them. So they start to build a relationship. And when you have a good relationship, it's a win-win situation for everybody. We understand our actually clients because they are our clients. We understand them and they understand us. So it's maybe important that everybody who is working with people in any way has this kind of relationship. You can't go so near as we can go because we are in their homes, but in another department, by having the relationship with people, but knowing a little more than the absolutely minimum, you start to think in another way. So I think it's very important, and although it's a little bit stretching for the housing companies, I think that the structures that are running or giving the mission to the housing companies are starting to change, which will be maybe a combination, a cooperation with all the other parts and actors in the society.
Absolutely wonderful. And I think it's something where, you know, Chris has just mentioned in the chat there that he lives in a scheme for over 55s and sees loneliness every day, and have personally tried to get older and iller residents to actually engage. But there's an approach: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I think the housing associations have a huge job, as the communities are very diverse, and the stigma that exists, the trust between resident and landlord can break. I feel people being discharged from hospital and back into independent living, leaving a big gap of support given. So many lonely people just get left. Yet in the local community, there are loads of groups that struggle to fund things. So I think it's attitudes and culture changes that need to happen. And Ted's mentioned it's a nice new approach, very similar to living a communal life like during the late 60s and 70s. And I think so much of what you shared today has been about that thing of sometimes you do just kind of have to go, look, we're doing this. We have to step in, we have to help, because it isn't just happening by itself. But look what can happen when you do, because then you can step back. Once it's up and running and you can see it grow, you can get such incredible success, but you've got to be willing to be brave enough to let it happen in the first place.
But on the other side, you have to ask yourself, what's the alternative? To do nothing? So that's not an alternative. So we are in a situation in the world today, not only in your country, in my country, or that we all have to help in order to make it work. And there is no other alternative. So creativity and make your own chances a possibility as good as you can. It will maybe fail in this case, but don't forget that there is always the right time for the right thing. And maybe it's not the right time today, but it's not the wrong thing, but just because of that.
I couldn't agree more. Just waiting for kind of questions and any other thing that might come through as a final question. I mean, Alessandro, I don't know if you can just for a moment pop on and explain to the Social Housing Roundtable what the European Housing Network is and how you came to partner with Dragana, and I guess just a brief one of what it's trying to achieve.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. You have already anticipated a bit the figures, the big numbers about our network. We were, very in a nutshell, we were founded 20 years ago. Actually, next year we are celebrating the 20-year anniversary. We started with a dozen of public and social housing providers from France, Sweden, Germany, and Italy. Over the year, the network grew. We have now 39 members in 7 countries. And we are mainly a best practice exchange network. This happens through 5 topic groups. We have obviously the social integration topic group that Dragana is coordinating. We have an aging, so a topic group dedicated to aging and elderly population, one dedicated to sustainability and energy efficiency and so on. Then we have another one dedicated to IT and communication technologies, not just to improve performances internal to the companies, but also as regard to the external communication with tenants, but also politicians, press, and other stakeholders. And very recently, we set up a new topic group dedicated to HR staff, which, yes, you know very well, as we'll be speaking very shortly. So when we have topics that are not particularly dealt in the context of topic groups, we organize, obviously, ad hoc webinars or meetings. And so this, let's say, close the first big part of our work, that is sharing best practices. Then we have also another, if you want, pillar of our organization that is about training our staff. For that, we organize, we have different programs. We have sort of a summer school where we basically ask young staff to take part and develop a business case. So we give them an assignment and they have an entire week to work together. Again, we have people with different backgrounds and different countries that are working on a common project, and they have at the end of the week to present their solution to a jury composed by CEOs from our member companies. And then another successful program that is called Exchange Program, that gives the opportunity to a staff member from one of our companies to go and visit their counterparts in another country, or not necessarily in another country, but this is often what happens. And they can spend 3 days up to a week working back on the same mission and exchange practice. Obviously, this works well not only for the sending company, but also for the company to receive the host, because these are mutual learning. And then we have many other little programs that we are running. But this is really, in essence, what we do. We share best practices and we invest on our staff. Well, staff of our member companies.
And it's about sharing information as wide and broad and everything as possible. And it was brilliant that we've been able to bring, obviously, Dragana and the topic to the table today. Deli's mentioned in the chat that I believe that this project, Dragana, you talked about, would work really well in what we're calling 15-minute cities, which is a new concept and project being run over in the UK. But I just kind of want to leave, we've got a couple of minutes left, Dragana. What would your final, I guess, thoughts or calls to action be to anybody who's listened today, to who's thinking about today, and to where either to start on something like this, or more importantly, how to kind of change maybe perceptions on why it works? What would be your request from people who are here today to just start thinking about and take away from today's session?
Always start from yourself. What would you do if you were in this situation? Then it's always a good feeling. What would be important? Try to be empathic, and no thought, no idea is too small, and have confidence in yourself. so that's what I would say. But of course, there is a saying in my country that says, "If you are confident, luck comes along." And that's actually, if you do the most of what you can do, you will get lucky too.
I love that. That's wonderful, and it's something I think would be great to sometimes think about. I want to say a huge thank you to Dragana and to Eurhonet for coming along. If you're interested in finding out more, please do go to eurhonet.eu, and if you're looking for more information, I did share the link earlier on the SällBo program. I can share that with anybody who's maybe listening back and wants it. We've got 2 more sessions coming up over the next week. So Thursday is a senior leadership special with Alert Call, who want to talk about 5 lessons from talking to 500 housing leaders. And then we're back next Tuesday in our usual slot with Devonshire's, who are going to be talking about the legal considerations when inquiring about criminal records, particularly around recruitment and hiring. So those two sessions are going to be great. Do please join. But for now, a massive thank you to Dragana, to Alessandro, to Eurhonet for coming along today, and to everyone who's been able to join us. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon.
Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for listening to us. Bye bye. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye all. Bye.